My God, for being best of friends, we were cruel, cruel savages to each other. Welcome back to Gam Catches Up. Before we get into today's story, please hit that like button, share this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell if you could, please. So the following tale, I'm going to have the giggles through a lot of this story simply because to this day, the person that it happened to still doesn't believe it happened, even though we told him exactly what had happened. One night, Guido, Shadow, Danny, and myself were all hanging out at my house. It's about 7 o'clock at night. We're waiting for our buddy Murph to get done. He's coming over after he's done work. And Murph is working at the local bar. He's supposed to bring us 2 cases of beer because we're currently out of beer and hard alcohol. Normally, Guido would just go and drive out and get us beer, but he's in the middle of a tournament on X-Wing vs. TIE Fighter on PC, trying to hold his number 2 rank in the world at the time. So Shadow, Danny, and I are all bored, and you have to understand I had the entire attic of my house converted, so it was 2 conjoining rooms. Guido was sat in one room, and we were sat in the other. And we didn't want to interrupt him. We didn't want to throw his flow off because he was ranked number 2 in the world for that game. That, and he probably would have punched us in the mouth if we even came in and said anything to him. Danny, who had those big puffy lips, so he had that garbled voice, started in with, "Geez, I'm bored, Gam. We gotta do something." Shadow, for the most part, was usually a quiet kind of guy. The only time he got talkative, and he got overly talkative and super, super annoying, was when he drank. But for some reason, Shadow really, really wanted to drink that night. Then it occurred to me, wait a minute, I have a mini fridge sitting in the corner of the room. Maybe I have a beer or 2 stashed in there. Usually I just kept it for soda, but sometimes we'd keep a beer or 2 in there. Danny goes to the fridge and opens it up and goes, "Hey, there's a beer in here." Shadow says, "Give me the beer." I said, "No, it's my house. I want that beer. You give that beer to me, Danny." Danny looks at me, looks at Shadow, looks at the beer, then looks at Shadow, smiles and says, "I'm going to give it to my buddy Shadow here. You don't deserve it." So now I'm super offended. I go, what the hell do you mean? You're here with me every day, everything else. You can't give me the beer? It's my house. I want the beer. "Nah, you don't understand, Gam. This one's for Shadow." And he hands it to him. I'll never forget. Shadow gets this smug look on his face and looks at me with this arrogance. And he twists the cap on the beer. Tss, and he takes it and throws it back and pounds half that beer in one shot. Pulls that bottle from his lips, looks at me, looks at Danny, and goes, "I think it's skunk, dude." And he smells the beer. And he goes, "Yeah, it's definitely skunked. I'm going to be sick." And he sets the beer down and goes rushing into the bathroom. So now Danny starts laughing. He's just laughing his ass off. And I'm like, "Dude, I can't believe that. You really gave him that beer over me. You just probably saved my butt if that thing skunked." And that's when Danny says to me, "Look at the beer, Gam," and holds up the bottle. And I look at it. And then I start dying laughing. Flashback 7 months earlier. Guido had this friend of his. I'm going to give him the nickname of Thug. Thug was into bodybuilding, martial arts, very healthy living. He was also super arrogant and super, super annoying. The way Guido had met him was at a Jeet Kune Do class, and they had actually known each other in high school. They didn't hang out much. They hung out here or there. But because they were both in Jeet Kune Do together, it was one more guy for us to practice with. Well, Thug had come over to my house, and we were training one night, and he just really, really got on Guido's nerves. And he used to bring this fancy schmancy beer with him. He couldn't just bring something regular. It always had to be this off-brand that nobody else drank except for him. So when we were done training our Jeet Kune Do for the night, Thug left and still had one beer left behind. Guido had taken that beer, gone into the bathroom, emptied half of it into the sink, and then filled it back up. And if you notice the title of the video, you know exactly what he filled it up with. Guido had refilled that half bottle with his own urine. He then took the cap, popped it back on, and screwed it down as tight as he possibly could. He then gave the bottle a little shake, so this way it appeared as though the seal would never have broken, and that's why when Shadow opened it, it made the psst sound. He put it in the back corner of the mini fridge that at that point in time was filled with soda. And for 5 months, we always remembered, don't drink that beer. It sat there as a trap for when Thug came back, but for whatever reason, we had a falling out with him, probably over his arrogance, and we hadn't seen him in months. And the only 3 people that even knew about it were myself, Danny, and Guido. That thing sat in the back of that fridge for 7 months, and I had completely even forgotten it had existed because none of us wanted to drink that brand of beer. And just looking at the bottle would remind us it was the P-Bomb. So now Shadow is off in the bathroom puking his lungs out, and Guido has a break in his match. He comes walking in, and Danny and I are in tears. We're literally rolling on the floor, just laughing and crying. And Guido wants to know what's so funny. So Danny just points at the bar and says, Shadow drank that. Guido goes, oh my God, he drank the P-Bomb. So now Shadow, we hear the toilet flush, and Shadow walks back in the room, and Guido's laughing just as hard as we are. And Shadow's just like, what's so funny, guys? What is so funny? Guido turns to him and says, so tell me, how does my piss taste? Danny, myself, and Guido are laughing even harder now because Shadow's response is, you didn't pee in that bottle. It was skunked. It's not a P-Bomb. To this day, Shadow still will not accept the fact that he accidentally drank the P-Bomb. He still swears it was nothing more than the skunked beer. For the next several months, anytime we would take a beer out of that mini fridge, we would look around the room at each other and say, pee-free, and everybody would say pee-free. And then we would drink it. Well, anyway, that's today's story. And the moral of it is, before you drink your next beer, pop the cap and take a whiff. Make sure it's not a P-Bomb. So hopefully this story gave you a little bit of a laugh for the day. If you did like it, go ahead, hit the like button. Subscribe to the channel. I got more stuff coming. Share this video. And please hit that notification bell. It'll tell you when I'm posting. But most times it's going to be Tuesday. So until next time, I'm Gam. And I'm out like pronouns at a college meet and greet.